Salt from Bali's beaches is some of the rarest in the world. It's also some of the most natural. But harvesting it takes patience and a huge amount of strength. Nangapura is 45 years old, and she's one of the last salt farmers here in the seaside village of Kusamba. She spends her days carrying baskets full of seawater and pouring them on the volcanic sand to filter out the salt. But salt farmers make so little that most have left the business for better paying jobs at nearby hotels and tourist spots. We traveled to Kusamba in Bali to see how this salt farming tradition is still standing. Tourists visit Kusamba and nearby regions for their famous volcanic sands. But for Nunga's family, they've been an essential source of income for at least 4 generations. She starts her day at 6 in the morning, leveling sand for about an hour. It's no easy task, even for Nunga, who's been doing this since she was just 15 years old. She and her husband make up to 40 round trips every day to collect water from the ocean. The baskets of seawater can weigh 66 pounds. Even on a calm day like today, it's hard to keep the balance against a swelling tide. So she tries to collect water from smaller waves. After 30 years, she can go back and forth for hours without a break, even as temperatures reach as high as 90 degrees Fahrenheit. The manual labor drove some farmers to replace the buckets for machines that can pump that much water in just minutes. But Nunga hasn't installed one yet. This fine volcanic sand sets Kusamba farm salt apart from other kinds, like that from salt ponds or rock deposits. It absorbs the water fast, like a natural sieve, leaving sun-baked salt flakes on the surface. Nunga is careful to spread the water evenly, because the salt won't crystallize if there's too much water in one area. On a sunny day like today, the water will dry by the afternoon, and she collects it immediately. Most of the tools they use are made from local resources, like this wooden rake. But it's an industry dependent on the fickle weather. Farmers can spend weeks without income during the rainy season between October and April. And erosion is slowly swallowing up this beach. Kusamba's beach coastline shrank 32.74 meters in just 7 years. That's nearly 5 meters a year, the second worst rate in this region of Bali. It's forced many farmers to rely on man-made sea defenses. All this risk and uncertainty is why Nunga's husband has taken a second job in construction, and why the couple doesn't want their 2 children following them into the salt fields. Still, Nunga says she enjoys it, and she works hard to maintain the business she inherited from her ancestors. Nunga filters the salt in her hut. She uses seawater to flush all of the salt from the sand, and runs it through a filtration system 3 times until the salt is pure. She pours the concentrated salt water into these troughs. They're called balung, and they're what give the salt its name. Traditional ones are made from coconut tree trunks. But Nunga also uses these synthetic sheets that help the water dry faster. This is the only part of the process that she's modernized. More and more, farmers have been switching to these because they're cheaper and don't leak. But farmers like Wayan Rena think it's important to stick to this traditional palung.
Harus kembali ke palung. Nah, itulah yang disebut organik. Itulah yang disebut alami. Alat jemurnya.
Palung like these can last up to 30 years. This kind of solar evaporation is one of the oldest and most traditional techniques of harvesting salt. In about 1 or 2 days, the water will be gone, leaving behind pyramid-shaped crystals. The natural sea salt is said to be higher in nutritional value than the average table salt, which is often heavily refined. Farmers describe the flavor as subtle and not overwhelmingly salty. And this is the only salt Nanga grew up eating. While Indonesia has one of the longest coastlines in the world, bad weather and coastal changes have affected salt production. Kusamba farmers typically produce between 300 and 600 kilograms of salt a month. But Indonesia imports about 2 million tons of cheaper salt every year, meaning the farmers have stiff competition. Farmers sell 1 kilo of balung dried salt for about $2. That's more than 3 times the price of mass-produced salt sold in most grocery stores, making it a luxury item for the majority of people. That leaves farmers with unsold stock. Wayan leads a network for local salt farmers, and he helps artisans like Nenga sell their salt. Salt farmers have been turning to tourists who are willing to pay for more than just the salt itself.
Yang tamu dia cari apanya yang cari? Kan tradisinya. Bukan garamnya yang dia beli mahal. Karena cara pembuatannya masih tradisi.
The decline of tourism during the pandemic was a major setback for them. And without the promise of a consistent livable wage, this generation of farmers could be the last to continue this trade.
Bapak berusaha untuk membangkitkan anak-anak muda. Mulai sekarang mudah-mudahan lah. Kenapa? Karena Bapak ingin melestarikan warisan.
Kusamba salt farmers received a geographical indication certificate from the Indonesian government in early 2022. It recognizes that a product comes from a particular place and has a unique reputation because of that. Farmers hope the international prestige of the certificate will boost export sales.
Nah, Bapak yakin untuk ke depan pasti akan cerah.
Banten katikuangan uyah sambil berusaha dan bang ada nak nyusukin. Kada cakapang mau nak nyakap, mau nak depan aja. Tadi dak.